So let's take a look what this session is. If you don't know by now, you know. Now is, I thought you were dead.
It's so hot here.
Yeah, it's me. Okay. So RDS 2012 from 0 to hero. Before I explain what this session is, I'm Claudio Rodrigues. That's my email address, my Twitter handle, if you need anything. If you need the scripts that I'm going to show, if you need whatever, the presentation, assistance, questions, just send me an email or Twitter, and I'll try to help you out, okay? So what is the RDS 2012 from 0 to hero? The idea with the session is to show you how to go from nothing, meaning just a bunch of VMs, as of today. So you have a bunch of VMs sitting around, and how you can run a single script, and that script will give you, as soon as it finishes, a fully functional RDS 2012 environment with 2 applications published to the users. So you can see right away off the bat if it's working or not. And by a fully functional environment, I mean you are going to have your web interface, you are going to have, I'll go through the components, so no, I'm not assuming that everyone is familiar, but you are going to have every single component of what makes the RDS 2012 stack deployed, configured, and talking to each other. Okay, just to give you an idea of time frames on the script itself. As it stands today, I have here sitting on this little desk a Mac Mini with 16 gigs of RAM. So, you know, it's not the fastest thing ever, but it's the latest Mac Mini with the quad-core CPU. And I'm just using the regular hard drive that came with the device. So I didn't buy the whatever Fusion drive, whatever it's called. So just the cheapest. That's why I'm asking you for money, because I don't have enough money. So plain hard disk, 16 gigs. I created a bunch of 2012 VMs, as many as we need to put up a brand new RDS 2012 environment. The script from start to finish, it takes around 25 minutes on this hardware. If you have kick-ass hardware, you know, back at home or in your company, this shouldn't take more than 10 minutes, I would say. Okay? So if a consultant tells you they need 6 months, it's bullshit. It's just 10 minutes. Okay? Well, there is more to the whole thing, okay? So trust the consultant, because I'm a consultant too. Okay. So here we go for the agenda. As I said, I don't assume that everyone knows every single component, so I'll try to explain what each component does, and I'll correlate the RDS components with the Citrix counterparts. Everyone here uses Citrix or familiar with Citrix? No? No one uses Citrix?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, otherwise what would you be doing here? You should go to the Green Bullshit Conference. Al Gore came and all that shit. So really cool. But I'm glad that you are here. Awesome. So we'll cover the components. Then I will explain what the deployment types are, because that's a new thing with 2012. I'll try to mention a little bit of 2012 R2, because R2 is coming out. And it was funny because this week I got I don't even know if I should tell you that, but I don't care, honestly. So we may have to edit that later. But Microsoft asked me, like, they sent an email to all the Microsoft MVPs for remote desktop services. And they were asking us, like, oh, what do you think about 2012 R2? They actually sent the email like last week asking feedback. And then I got another email yesterday saying, well, no one gave any feedback. And I'm like, yes, no shit. Like everyone, they didn't even migrate to 2012, and you are releasing 2012 R2, and you're expecting people to give you feedback on something they're going to be using like 3 years down the road? Yeah, there is no feedback to be given. I don't know you guys, but I have been dealing with people, tons of people actually on 2008 R2, getting to 2008 R2. Yep. And the brave ones that are going for 2012, that's it. You know, they are brave to go to 2012.
Yep.
They're not crazy to go to 2012 R2. So there is a fine line between braveness and stupidity. And that's the problem here. So if 2012 R2 is out, who is going to deploy it this year? I don't expect anyone to do it, unless it's a brand new environment. And there are cases it's a brand new environment. And then you may say, yeah, you know, I prefer to deal with new bugs, and then you go for 2012 R2, than dealing with the old bugs of 2012. So it's your call. But for existing environments, I don't see R2 being rolled out anywhere, at least on RDS, by the end of the year.
Start button?
Man,
R2?
yeah. Well, if you need a start button that bad, yes, then go for R2. But it may destroy other things. You may have the start button, but you know. So yeah, not a good idea. Then we're going to take a look at doing it. So I'll run the script live. It's going to take 25 minutes. I don't know how I'm going to entertain you during these 25 very long minutes, but we'll try to find a way. Well, I'll talk about Citrix and so on. And I'll show you some of the snags along the way. It's stuff that Microsoft, they honestly, they try to convince me that it's not that bad. You know, I remember an email I sent to the, you know, the whole RDS manager, and I told him, man, I did this today and it sucks. It sucks, you know, giant balls. It's horrible. And he replied, you know, really trying to convince me that no, it doesn't suck. It's actually really good. And I'm like, are you honestly saying that something that is like this is good? What are you drinking, man? Like, so they try to convince you that some of the stuff that you are gonna see is it's no big deal. No one cares. Yeah, it's by bad design, not by design. But it's horrible. So I will show you what it is. And then how it compares to XenApp, because in a way, many people ask that question all the time. Where are we at with RDS 2012 compared to XenApp? It's not an easy answer, and there is no cut and dry like if you do this, use this, or use that. It's not exactly like that. It will get down to use case and business case and how deep your pockets are, and you know, like anything else in life. Also, I'm not going to be comparing like feature by feature, you know. Yep. XenApp supports, I don't know, Symbian clients, check. No, it's not exactly like that. It's going to be a generic comparison, but one that is going to give you a very good overview on how the two platforms compare. And you know, if it's worth investigating this platform, or no, you stick to, you know, to XenApp. So that's the goal of the session. And then a questions and answer. Just as a heads up, we didn't make to the questions and answer in London, so.
It's the last session though, for the day.
What?
It's the last session for the day, so maybe this time we'll do it.
Yeah, that's true. It's the last session of the day. Yeah, so who told me I should stop at 5 something? I think it was the lady over there. Okay. Another bullshitter. Okay, let's go. So components, let's take a look. First one, RD licensing, so the remote desktop services licensing server, comparing to the Citrix licensing server, okay? So you need a license in order to use the product. With RDS, it's a little bit more complicated than it is with Citrix, because Citrix, in most cases, there are certain exceptions. You may fall into scenarios where what I'm going to say doesn't apply, but Citrix, in most cases, will give you a grace period. RDS, you have a grace period. The problem with RDS is the grace period is like a second. So a second later, you are down, everyone is not working. So that's a good thing with RDS licensing. And the best one is there is really no official supported way to have it fully, highly available. So what Microsoft tells you, oh, set up 2 license servers and split the licenses. Yeah, that's true, okay.
Those good things, yeah, the top users will.
Yeah.
Won't be able
My
to
answer is do 2 license servers and install the same exact license on both. Okay? There is a fine line between legality and my approach, but you know, they don't need to know that. Okay? So I just want to make it easy. Yeah, honestly, splitting 2 and you know screw up half of my users. Not that I like users, but you know that's beyond the point. So I don't want a half of the company on my ass like, oh yeah, everything is down. Okay, no. Everything is going to be up, and the way to do that is 2 license servers with all the licenses you have. Okay, and here it goes a Claudio tip. Just call Microsoft Clearinghouse and tell them your licensing server blew up. And they will give you another license. No questions asked. That's legal to me. Okay? So that's the RD licensing. You need licenses. Okay? Second thing, well, nice thing with RDS licensing, if you don't know, for application virtualization, Microsoft has Microsoft AppV. Now it's included with the RDS licensing. So if you buy that, you are entitled to run Microsoft AppV as long as your clients are the terminal servers. Okay? If you want to do desktops with AppV, then you need to buy and pay Microsoft extra licenses. RD Web Access. So we have a component called the Remote Desktop Services Web Access. What that is, it's basically a web front end to your RDS environment. So users go to a certain web page, they see a logon screen. It does support smart cards, like if you have. So if they have the smart card, plug it in, it can pass the credentials. But assuming that you are like you know, a remote user, no smart card or no smart card whatsoever, even for internal users, they see this web page, they type username and password, authenticates, and boom, they see all the resources. By resources, I mean applications and desktops they are entitled to. They click on an application, Microsoft Word, Excel. It passes all the credentials and launches the application. Okay? So that's the one thing with RD Web Access. It's the equivalent of the Citrix web interface or the Citrix storefront. Okay, not saying they are equal, but you get the idea. They are the same concept in theory. Yes?
Different than the remote desktop gateway.
Yes, yes. We are going to talk about the remote desktop gateway because there was some confusion about that when RD Web Access came out. So the second thing on RD Web Access that many places don't even use it and they are not even aware, and I'll show you later here on a Windows Surface, the ARM version, the RT. All Windows 7 and Windows 8 machines, they have an option on Control Panel that allows you to enter the URL for your RD Web Access. On 2012, it's even easier. You just enter your email address. Of course, it goes on DNS and does a search, but basically, you just enter a website under Control Panel, and that will retrieve all your applications. So if you have Windows 7, it will dump the applications on your Start menu, for example. If you have Windows 8, it will dump the applications into that Start whatever screen. Don't know the name. Most people don't like it, but it's right there. And then when you log on, if the machines are domain joined, you log on to the machine, it gets your credentials, passes to the RSS feed, populates with the correct icons. You click on an icon for an application, it reuses your credentials, and you see the application running. So that's part of 2008 R2 and of 2012 as well. Okay, it's a Control Panel setting. I can show you later. Well, that's the RD web access, just a web interface for my applications. Then I have my RD gateway. That's the question you asked. What was confusing at first, when Microsoft released the first RD web access, does anyone remember when that happened? 2000. It was with Windows 2000. So when people saw that, they were like, man, that's it. That's all we need. We deploy this web thing and we are gold. Well, guess what? That was just an interface to an RDP file. So the RDP file that tells you where to go would go to connect to the server on the regular RDP port. So people were confused. Well, I'm trying to connect and it doesn't connect. Well, do you have port 3389 open on your firewall? Oh, no, because I have this web access thing. Well, guess what? The web access is not really web access. It's just a container for files. So that's where the RD gateway comes to the picture. The RD gateway, it's just what the name says. That's the functionality, basically, like the bottom line. You connect to that box using HTTPS, and then from there, it gets to the backend, to your RDS session host, to the terminal service. So that becomes a true, like if you have an HTTPS RD web access. So if you have a certificate there, you have a certificate on your gateway, you are connecting all the way from the endpoint to the entry point using HTTPS. Then there is no RDP, there is nothing. There is only one catch, and you're going to learn potentially the hard way, and you are going to tell me if it will be a battle with your network people, because sometimes you don't do everything, right? You are the RDS guy or the Citrix guy, but you need to talk to the network guy. And network people, they are not very friendly, to say the least. So you are asking them for stuff, and they are like, no. I didn't ask you anything. Well, it's no, I don't care. So the problem is with the latest Microsoft RDP protocol, in order to fix performance over bad connections, so where you have latency or loss and so on, now they switch to UDP, to a UDP transport. So basically, you're going to have to tell your network guys, I need to open an UDP port on my firewall. You may lose your job asking that, but that's the bottom line. RD Gateway, to support the best transport, that is the UDP, it requires a UDP port to be open, okay? You can at least configure which port you want, so it's not that bad. But that's the way it works. I don't see as a big deal, to be honest. It's one port going to the gateway, then the gateway goes, to the terminal server, so yeah. I don't see as a big problem, but just for you to be aware, it requires a UDP port if you want to leverage all the best experience provided with RDP8. That is the latest version of the Microsoft Remote Display Protocol on Server 2012. If you are okay with TCP, then it's just 443, just HTTPS. Okay? Any questions on the gateway? All good? The gateway has a lot of functionality, okay, in a certain way. You can configure all sorts of like rules and who gets access to what and all that. The bottom line, at least in my mind, is it's really overkill for what Microsoft is after in terms of market. Usually Microsoft tries to address the base of the pyramid in terms of companies like smaller environments, less complex and all that. But at the same time, they add so much complexity on some of the components that it contradicts its own purpose. And the gateway is a typical example. You may see, like after you are done and you go through the configuration, it's bad, okay?
Do you need a dedicated server for the gateway?
Well, the deal here is, the question, do we need a dedicated server? To be honest, like any other solution, can I deploy XenApp in a single server? Oh yeah, I've done it. Not for a customer, but yes, I did it. RDS, the same thing. When we go through the deployment, I'll show you, like the deployment allows everything to be in a single server. And the funniest part is Microsoft released a KB article like a couple weeks ago explaining how to do RDS on a domain controller. And I'm like, holy shit, are you crazy? And they are like, oh, no, it's no big deal. Okay. I can see why your shares didn't go up in the last 5 years. Can see a trend right there. Okay, so answer, can I do single server or can I install with other things? Yes, I can. Should I? No. Okay, I wouldn't. Okay, and one example for why not doing it, that's another funny one. A couple weeks ago, Microsoft released a patch for Windows Server 2012. This patch is a really funny one. You install on your server, it installs, everything is good. And then you try to add remote desktop services, it fails. And the solution is, according to Microsoft and its article, is, no, just reinstall the server. That's fine. Yeah. Oh yeah, reinstall the server, yeah. That's a good, uninstall for the patch. Yeah, it fixes the patch, amazingly, yeah. So that's one of the problems. If I put everything in one server or multiple roles in one box, the way it is as of today, it's unpredictable if a patch meant for a role will break something else. I prefer not to take the risk, especially in the virtualization days, just create VMs and that's it. Question here.
Yeah, I mean, the servers are so powerful these days. It's not like the old days where you might need a small business server because you couldn't virtualize.
Yeah.
All the roles on one thing.
Now, you buy, like a good example, a customer of mine a couple months ago, some genius created this architecture inside the company. So they bought 4 new servers and they decided they wanted to do RDS. But usually people call me after they bought everything, after they had their beautiful master plan. And then I'm like, why are you calling me if it was that beautiful to start with? But they call me. And then I'm looking at their plan and it was like this, we bought these 4 big servers and they were decent servers, like 256 gigs of RAM and so on. And they were like, one is gonna be the domain controller, the other 2 will be terminal servers and the other one is gonna do, I don't know what. And I'm like, seriously? And they were like, yeah, it's gonna work. Yeah, it's gonna work for a week, and then what? So we redid everything with the 4 servers, and there was so much power, like in terms of a cluster, 1 terabyte of RAM and all these cores, that again, just to spin off as many VMs as you need, and that's it. You have a fully redundant environment. Yeah. Any server today can handle, like, most workloads, no problem, in several VMs. So no difference here.
Every OS includes VM entitlements, so why wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. You buy one big licensed data center, licensed per CPU, and you can run as many VMs. Just do it. Cheaper. So next one here on the whole infrastructure, the RD connection broker. The connection broker, Citrix has no real equivalent because the way they determine where your session is or should go, but the connection broker is just a component that basically knows where to send your user session. So when you connect, let's say you go through the web, you hit the web access, you log in, you see icons, you click, the icon will be a text file, .rdp file. It's parsed by the local RDP client. It will connect, let's say, to an RD gateway, or you will detect if you are internal or external. It can do that as well, and may bypass the gateway in that case. and then hits the connection broker. So the connection broker will say, okay, let me see if you have a session disconnected, or a session that dropped it and it's not in disconnected state, it's active. If you have, it sends you there. If you don't have it, then it sends you to any of the terminal servers that are part of your deployment. Okay? So it's the man in the middle just to determine where you are, you were, or where you should be. Okay?
Where does that connection broker? Is that something you can run on the gateway too?
No, separate roles. Okay? Just keep that in mind. For every single guy here, this one you already know. We need 2 of these. This guy here, of course, for load balancing purposes, you need 2. The gateway, same thing for load balancing, you need 2. Connection broker, you need 2. The thing is with 2012, that's a new thing on 2012. Now Microsoft came up with a highly available solution for RD connection broker. Okay? And it's another thing that's not very pretty. And actually that was the whole email thread between myself and the Microsoft developers. It was because of the connection broker. And the reason for that is it's stupid. You know? Some retarded developed that shit. And their line of thought was like, no, I can, tell the user to run this SQL script and that's fine. You can't embed a SQL script on an installation of a product. You can't do that. And they were like, oh, no, it's more complex than that. Like, more complex, my ass. I saw the script. It's like 5 lines. I can do in 1 line. So, and they really tried to tell me, no, it's fine. It's fine that you have to go on the SQL server and do all these things and add stuff to the local groups. And I'm like, oh my God, that's no good. But anyhow, you can do highly available. It requires a SQL server. And then you have to deal with SQL people in certain cases. So they're going to have to give you a database. The database, it's not like a regular database that you can just assign default rights. You actually need to, allow the installer to do some interesting stuff. Your SQL guy may not like that, but you need it, okay? So you are going to need a SQL server, then you point the RD connection brokers to the SQL server, and then boom, it's highly available. So again, if your SQL goes down, the RD connection broker will go down with your SQL.
That's what I was going to ask. And then the SQL database has to be highly available if you're going to use that method.
Exactly. Okay? So that's, in a way, it's no different than anything else, right? Like Citrix. Citrix requires a database. On XenApp 6.5, at least the database could be down. Now, on XenApp 7, it's Zen Desktop 7 apps. Yeah. No, marketing crap. But XenApp 7, now if the SQL goes down, yay, everyone goes down with the SQL. So make sure you have a highly available SQL server. Yeah, I never understood that. You can't cache stuff locally either. We put people on the moon and we can't, cache SQL data locally. Amazing. So RD session host, it's the last component. It's the one that actually hosts my users. My user launches Excel, he's here. After he passes through all these checks with licensing, web interface, gateway, broker, boom, I'm on that server. Okay? So it's your final destination. It's where the applications run. That's the equivalent on the Citrix XenApp world. These guys would be your actual XenApp servers. And they actually require RD session host to be installed as a role. Otherwise, XenApp doesn't even install. Okay? Clear? So, deployment types, that's new with 2012. I didn't check if anything changed on 2012 R2 in that respect. I don't think so. But here is the deal. We have two types of deployments. This is just a GUI, a wizard-driven interface for you to deploy a terminal services environment. Is it good or bad? Well, it's not a matter of being good or bad. Everything that shows something on the screen where people can pick up options, someone is going to mess up at one point, guaranteed. Okay? So it's not about being easy or not. The idea of this session was actually to remove the human factor on an RDS installation. So there is nothing to be clicked. The only thing that it requires you is to type. So if you can't type, you shouldn't be on IT, okay? That's the first rule. But if you can type, or make someone type, then that's it. So the quick start is just a wizard that will say, okay, give me a server, point me to a server, and I'll do everything for you on that one server. Well, if you want to just show your boss that you can from home connect and run whatever, sure. That's an easy way to do it. Should you do like a production environment running that single server thing? No. Okay? For the reasons we explained it. But again, for a POC and just to get a hang about the RDS 2012, how to manage and so on, yeah, it's valid. Then we have the standard deployment. The standard deployment, it's in a way what we are going to do. But again, as I said, just wizard driven. There is a GUI, you go, pick, click, next, boom, it does for you. There are certain little things it doesn't do for you using the GUI, and I'll explain what it is, and then I'll tell you where I'm heading with this particular script. So as I said, it's a pick and choose. So what it doesn't do and what I'm trying to achieve. The idea of that script is very simple. What I'm trying is, first, I'm trying to interface with the hypervisors. So if you have a template on Hyper-V, on VMware, I don't want to say Xen, because people know that I don't like Xen. But I know there are some Citrix people here, so. Yeah, if you have Xen server, that gorgeous product, so then you are on your own, because I'm not going to write a script for Xen. Okay, so if you are on Hyper-V or VMware, the idea is the script, you point to a template, the script will clone that template, will change everything that is required, then we'll fire up all the RDS installation. And by that, I'm going a couple steps further than the standard deployment. For example, the desktop experience, my script installs. The regular Microsoft standard deployment does not. The other thing is, the goal with the script is even the NLB portion. So let's say you have 2 web access, 2 RD gateways, and so on. You can enter all that information on an Excel spreadsheet that is in the works. It's not finalized. The idea is you go on that Excel, you enter the server names, you enter the name of the template, if it's VMware or Hyper-V, you'll check box, oh, I want to have these guys load balanced. These are the IPs that I want. Excel, you click a button, exports a text file that is really a PowerShell. You run that one PowerShell thing and the environment is all done, okay? Load balanced for the web access, load balanced for the gateway with the proper certificates and so on, okay? Of course you need the certificates. I can't create the certificates for you, okay? So that's the goal. Are we there yet? Not really. We are getting there. So basically automate the whole RDS thing. So doing the actual work. It's all PowerShell. And as I said, today the script can do a full RDS 2012 infrastructure, connection broker, web access, session host, gateway, license server. It's all there for you. And then creates a collection. A collection is just a bunch of RDS session hosts together. And then for the collection, I go and I create a remote app. So if you go to the web interface, you log on using your credentials, you're going to see a remote app right there, ready for you. You can, of course, change it. If you know your servers have Microsoft Office installed, you know the path and so on, you can add all that and the script will take care of publishing all these applications automatically. So really, it kind of helps. So, okay, live demo. Let's take a look here. Let me see.
Did you create the demo docs?
Yeah, I try to, but they not always listen to me. But so let's take a look here. So the name of the script is RDS Magic, okay? Because it has some mystical components on it. So let's see what it does. Well, it will do, hopefully. I had a little issue this morning, but hopefully it's fixed by now. I can't guarantee it is actually fixed, but. And here's another tip for you. When you run PowerShell, if you see anything in red, it means it's bad, okay? So PowerShell is not meant to show anything in red, okay? Just a heads up. So we should see everything in green and yellow, then we are good. Red is bad again. So during the meantime, let's take a look at the script. Okay, red is bad. Here we go. Okay, bullshitters, where's the issue? Oh, okay. There's a little issue with the connection broker. Let's take a quick peek at the connection broker. But during the meantime, let me do this. I just want to show you the script, because the connection broker fix is relatively easy. And of course, you can improve that. You can loop stuff and retrieve, for example, from AD, you can retrieve computer names. So if you have a standard like whatever -sh for your session hosts, you can retrieve everything that has -sh and then pass that to the PowerShell script. But here's the idea. We are going to do a new session deployment, and then you just have to point to the connection broker. Who is the connection broker? Who is your web access server? Let's say you just want to have one, so you just pass one. Then you pass your session host and so on. So there are just parameters for each of the components, and they all get glued together at the connection broker. And you actually manage everything. You can manage from any server, really. You just create a group of servers. But usually I just go to the connection broker and I create a server group using the server manager. If you don't know what it is, I'll show you what it is. And then you see the whole RDS deployment. So after I have my session deployment, I have my deployment done. Here I'm just adding a second terminal server. And when I add the second terminal server, RD server, I just tell that server, okay, the connection broker for this particular deployment is this guy here. It's my CB01. And the role that I'm adding to this server, into this deployment, to this server here, will be an RDS RD server. So it knows it's a server for my users to connect. Then I'm doing my licensing server. Same thing, I tell the connection broker I'm adding a licensing server, and it's an RDS licensing. I pass some configuration. You can do everything really on the license server using PowerShell. Here I'm just setting the license as per user. But you can also activate the licensing server, assuming there is internet access. And I can show you later how to do it. It's just another parameter that you can pass. And then I have now my remote app. So now I want to create that object that shows up on the web interface as soon as my user logs in. So I'm just telling here the connection broker. What is the alias? First, I want to name it WordPad. Here, display name. File path. If it's to be shown under my web access, because I can just publish but hide for now. So there are options for that. Yes, I will. Let's do it. No. Where's that? Word wrap. Perfect. Hey, better. Okay, so here's my WordPad. It shows up in web access. Then I tell the collection name that I created here. When you go and create the collection, you pass a name. And here it is. It's going to show my remote app WordPad in a folder called Basic Tools, and this is my connection broker. And here I'm also setting, you can do by PowerShell, it's just as an example. You can actually associate a certain file type extension with the remote app. Okay, so when people connect using the feed, for example, it knows the extension RTF on the local PC is supposed to be handled by my RDS deployment. And here I just do the desktop experience just to give a better look and feel more like a Windows 8 than the plain Windows 2012. And then I reboot the 2 session hosts. Everything that needs a reboot here is taken care of as soon as you add the role. If the role requires a reboot, it will do it. Okay? The only one that doesn't do by itself, it's the feature, the Windows desktop, the desktop experience. This one you have to force a reboot. So that's where we are at. So now let me take a quick look at the connection broker. We'll get there, don't worry. It's just sometimes running VMware ESX on a Mac Mini. It's not that supported. May lead us to issues. But let's take a quick look here. It could be something as simple as enabling a remote PowerShell, but usually if you're on the domain, you don't need it, but let's see what the issue is. Just give me 1 second, gentlemen. Well, during the meantime, any questions here? No questions so far? No? You just want to see the script running? Oh no, it's actually, there is VMware ESX running on the Mac Mini. Yeah, so there is no OS 10 or anything, it's just bare metal ESX on top of the Mac Mini.
That's because it's an Intel processor, right?
Yeah, it works.
It's very portable.
Yeah, it's nice because it's a small form factor. So you can easily carry, let's say, 2 of these and a small like XenApp or Synology external unit with, let's say, 2 hard disks. And then you can have like a little cluster with iSCSI, something that you can carry for demos and so on. So it's very effective. So let me see, enable PS remote in here. That could be the issue. Enable. Okay, let's see. Let's go back to the server here. Yes?
The PowerShell commandlets you're calling in your script, those are all standard Windows PowerShell commandlets. You didn't create any of your own.
No, it's all standard. All out of the box commands. There's nothing fancy here. So let's see if it fixed it. The last time I had this, the only thing I had to do was to get the machine out of the domain, rejoin the VM. No, I didn't apply that hotfix. And that can happen if you leave the machine off everything for more than 90 days. So I don't use this particular box all the time. So right now I think it's going to fail because it's not doing anything. Yeah?
I have that problem with the planner all the time. Particularly I'm taking snapshots and reverting back and you get beyond
Yeah.
that window. So there's a registry key you can set under services net login, and it's called disable password change.
Okay, so the computer password.
And it tells the domain controller not to change the password.
I see.
This eliminates that problem.
Same thing we have to do for PDS.
Okay, so as you can see, I didn't use that registry key, so we have a little issue here. But it's just, I'll just rejoin it. It should be quick. Just go here, click in here, then we go here. Okay, why I can? That's funny. Bastards. Or change the domain because it's installed. Oh, I'm on the wrong server. Okay. That's why. No, I'm on the right server to run the script. But just give me 1 second here. That's what happens when you have many VM windows going on.
Okay, you're a consultant, not operations.
That's it, yeah. Okay, here is good, yeah. Change, boom. Okay. Welcome, fine, restart, close, restart. So it's just one server restarting, we should be fine. Because the other ones didn't give me any sort of issue today, just the connection broke.
How many servers are you running on this box?
I'm running let's see. I'm running 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 servers. This is, it works.
Yeah, we can see that.
Well, the server works. I'm not saying the script works.
To use your words, this is bullshit.
Yeah, I know. Sorry about the bullshit here, but I'll just join the domain now and everything is good. The server is back. I just hate having to do that twice in a day. Because I tested my script this morning and I wanted to get an idea of how long it was taking to run. And that's where I saw the 25 minutes this morning. But then I reverted all the snapshots because I want a pristine environment. Well, guess what? It kind of broke my connection broker. And now I don't even know how much time we have. What time is supposed to end?
5:10. You got 25 minutes.
Yeah. exactly all we need. But I'll leave it running in background, and then we go through the final steps. Well, that happens when you do live stuff, right?
Like I said, created the demo badges.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just rejoining the domain. It's done. You will need to restart, close, restart now. So it is restarting. So let's go back here to the presentation before we see the script running, because it will run in background. So the first thing, the snags, okay? I'll show you an environment, we are gonna connect to the environment. But like one of the main issues that I see with RDS that really annoys me, and again, Microsoft says, no, it's no big deal. Well, it is a big deal in a way. It's more stuff that you have to configure, and I still don't understand why you can't pass that information back to the client. You should be able to do. You can pass. So I don't know why they don't do it. So the first problem is the certificates, okay? For some unknown reason, Microsoft, after looking what everyone has been doing over the years, Citrix, Quest, 2X, doesn't matter which company, Microsoft decided to do something different. So instead of using like one certificate like everything else, they decided, it's a great idea if we need a certificate for every single component. A different certificate. And more than that, doesn't matter which certificate I use, this certificate is untrusted by default. So what that creates is, as soon as you finish your RDS deployment, you go grab your real certificates from VeriSign and Trust, whatever it is, you install everything, the user goes to connect, he gets prompted because the certificate is not trusted. So what is the point of having a certificate, issued by a trusted certificate authority if the damn thing is not trusted by the RDP client? I don't understand. So you have to actually go, if the machine is domain joined, there is a registry key or a policy. It's a policy in a domain joined machine. If it's not a domain machine, it's just a registry key on the client. You have to go open the certificate, either PowerShell or just on the GUI, and you need to get the thumbprint of the certificate. After you have that number, you then dump that into a group policy or registry key, and then your client will trust the certificate. Then it will be seamless, okay? Same thing for the single sign-on. If the machine is domain joined, there is something else that I'll show later or you email me. It has to be changed to be completely transparent. So the lesson here is it's not going to be seamless out of the box, okay? It will not be seamless. You are going to have to do some little tweaking here and there to get rid of the certificate, prompts. You guys know what I'm talking about? Yeah? Okay. So yes, it is, let's go back here. The thing went crazy here. Just give me 1 second, I don't know why this, okay, here. So as I said, it's a pain in the ass, big pain in the ass, and it's dumb as well, and it's dumb and a pain in the ass, okay? So just keep that in mind. It's really annoying. So you need a policy for the thumbprint for domain joined machines, or you just get a registry key, install on the machines, and then you are good to go. Pay attention to the FQDNs, with the certificates, because when the connection is made, it will check if the certificate matches the names that you are using. So what I usually do is, for the gateway, for example, I internally or externally, I don't care where the connection is coming from. If I want everyone to use the RDS, no matter where, I always use the same FQDNs for internal and external access. Okay? I know some people, they go and create like RDS dot whatever dot local internal, and then they go RDS dot my company external, and then you have a mess. Okay? So just make sure you pay attention to what you are doing. So use the same for internal and external. So the XenApp comparison here. Just 1 second before we go there. Let's go back to the domain controller thing. We go back in here. We go back in here. Let's see what is going to happen now. Okay, we'll go back to the screen. Let's go back here to the presentation. And Macs don't work fine with dual monitor. You keep switching the desktop. When you go back, it loses the screen for some unknown reason. Okay, so a lot can be accomplished when comparing to XenApp. You can do a lot. So what is usually the end goal with a XenApp solution? People connecting to either a published desktop or a published application. That's the bottom line of the solution. Can that be done with RDS 2012? Certainly can, okay? And I'll show you one running. Then we get down to the comparison on the protocol itself. RDP versus the Citrix HDX, Citrix ICA. For that, I don't know if you guys went to Benny's and Sean's session, but they have a session comparing remote display protocols. So if you want more details, talk to them. But that said, how does RDP8 compares to ICA? As of today, for most use cases, it compares, they are like head to head. Unless you have certain very specific needs. Let's say you have a user that needs to connect to an application that has to see a certain OpenGL version. If that's the case, you have to go Citrix. Okay, OpenGL, like on RDP8, is limited to one of the first revisions. So for some specific needs, you have to go Citrix. If you really need to tackle really challenging WAN conditions, RDP8 is really good for most of the stuff today, has that UDP requirement. Citrix it's better in most cases, but again, depending on the case, more normal, a little bit of loss, a little bit of latency, RDP8 will do great. Okay? So protocol is very close as of today. Question here.
Do you know what the oldest RDP version is you can use to connect?
How old it can be?
RDP6 or RDP6?
Well, the server will fall back. Okay? So if you have, let's say, a Windows XP client, can it connect to the 2012 deployment? Yes, it can. But then it will fall back in terms of functionality, in terms of features. Okay? So it allows you to connect from any version, but it will limit the connection to that particular version. Okay?
The only exception is like the authentication.
Yeah, NLA or RDP authentication. Okay, so that's another thing to keep in mind. The other thing is RDP 7, Windows 7 now has there is an update for Windows 7 that allows you to bring RDP8 to the Windows 7 box itself. So if you have a VDI environment, you can connect to Windows 7 VMs using RDP8. You just need to be aware that as soon as you do that, RDP8 does not support certain things that 7 supported, like Aero. So if you have any application using that, you lose Aeroglass on the Windows 7 VMs. So there are some drawbacks when you go RDP 8 if you are on Windows 7 VMs, okay? But for the client, there is an RDP 8 client, of course, for Windows 7 and Windows 8. The other point with Citrix and RDS comparison is this. First one, Microsoft, they don't really care about anything that is non-Windows, okay? So if you have an iPad, they don't give a shit about your iPad, okay? And they actually hate you and try to make your life harder. So if you have an iPad, it's like, oh, now you need this, VDA, whatever. And if you use the iPad on the company cafeteria, you are covered. But if you go to smoke outside, then you are outside the company premises. Then your iPad is not covered anymore. So they have some really weird things about non-Windows devices. And of course, there is no official RDP client. And that poses a problem. Why? There are free alternatives out there for RDP 8, yes. Free RDP is one of them. The problem is RDP is Microsoft. So for example, printing requires their universal solution. It's an XML paper specification-based solution, XPS. Requires .NET. Do you have .NET on Linux? You have that mono crap, so that's not .NET.
iTap seems to work very well on the iPad.
What works very well?
iTap.
iTap?
Yeah, but it's a $12 product.
I have iTap on my Mac. It works, yeah, well, when it doesn't crash. Yeah. It's very good. No, honestly, I like iTap. It's the most, it's the closest to a Microsoft supplied RDP client, but it's not perfect. But supports the gateway, supports several things. Even the web interface, you can connect to the RD Web Access on the iPad, and then you click on the RDP file. You can say open with iPad and iTap, and then the iTap launches the connection. So it works. It's not perfect, but again, the message here is if you have non-Windows clients and you really need the best support for these devices, iPads, Android, iPhones, and even thin clients. That's one of the mistakes many places make regarding thin clients. They end up going for the cheapest. Cheap, it's bad. Okay, keep that in mind. Cheap and good are usually two words you can't use on the same phrase. And it's no different with thin clients. The problem with the thin clients is the cheapest ones, they don't run Windows embedded. And even from a Citrix perspective, Citrix has been trying, and Brad's right there, he can correct me in case I'm wrong. Citrix has been trying as much as they can to make sure the Linux client, their ICA, their Citrix receiver for Linux, whatever it's called today, is as close as possible as its Windows counterpart. Are they 100% feature set equivalent as of today, Brad? No. You heard from the Citrix god right there. So in that case, what happens is, if you buy a thin client that runs Linux, you will never get the same feature set as the Windows one, the one that runs Windows embedded. So really, if you want to have a thin client that has a very good lifespan and supports everything that either Citrix or Microsoft releases, it has to run Windows embedded, period. Okay? FreeRDP is the same thing, supports up to a certain extent. It doesn't support everything. So if you need non-Windows clients, Citrix is the way to go for sure. Out of the box with RDS, there is no way to automate server builds out of the box. If you want to automate everything, well, then you need to bring, let's say, MDT to the picture. With Citrix, out of the box, Zen Desktop 7, you have MCS, Machine Creation Services. You have PVS. So really, it's easy to go from one server to 20 and to roll back in case I install something that doesn't work. With RDS, out of the box, it's problematic. You may have everything up and running with a script like mine. Great, but then what? If I install a patch that breaks everything, how do I roll back? Well, you may need to go on the hypervisor and then remember before applying any patches to take a snapshot and all that. Can be done? Yes. Is it easy? No. Is it pretty? No, it's not. But again, it may not be a big deal depending on the number of servers. If you are talking about 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 servers with RDS, yeah, it may be manageable and fine. But if you are doing something much bigger than that and you know, going 50, 100, then you have a problem, okay? A problem that can be fixed, yes. How it can be fixed? Well, you need the beast. And that's true. Okay, you can do some crazy shit like if you have SCVMM, orchestrator, and so on. And I have seen stuff like this. With the whole thing here, you can have an RDS environment that as soon as operations manager detects that you are over, let's say, 100 users connected, it fires up a job using orchestrator that will provision another RDS server, will join the deployment, and it will be ready for the users. And if it goes under, it will get rid of the server completely. So this is really cool stuff, okay? It requires almost like magical skills, but it is cool. And you can break shit really fast with orchestrator as well. So just be very careful. But the magic is definitely there. So take a look at this presentation. You have the link on the PowerPoint or PDF, whatever. If you don't find it, just give me a shout and I'll show you. But that's a very good presentation showing you exactly what I'm telling you. To automate everything using System Center, VMM, orchestrator, and so on. Okay? But then, again, it's another thing that has to be added. You have to deal with System Center. Some people really like it. Some people can't even hear the name System Center, and costs money, of course. So then the question becomes, well, after I'm done with all these add-ons, System Center, license for this, license for that, am I really that far off from Citrix? You may not be, depending on the size of the environment. Okay? And just to give you an idea of complexity, this is a XenApp environment. All the components, you know, the Citrix XenApp servers and then merchandising server if you want to use a NetScalers and so on. RDS is almost as complex as this as of today because you have the same components. You have licensing, you have web, you have gateways, you have connection broker, you have redundancy. It is as complex. If you are thinking that, oh no, we go RDS, it's much simpler, it's actually not simpler. Not with 2012. It's as complex, and more than that, it is also, as you saw on the snags, it is a pain in the ass in certain cases. So just keep that in mind when doing RDS. So just a conclusion here. It's a very solid platform for sure, 2012. By far, it's the best RDP released to date. Much improved compared to RDP 7. Very close to Citrix HDX, as I said, in many cases. in my opinion, it's super complex, even on the components. As I said, as soon as you finish the gateway, go take a look at what you can do on the gateway. It's very, very, overboard for what they are trying to actually, achieve. You don't need all that complexity, in my opinion. It is scalable, it is manageable, but again, it may require some tricks or extra tools, okay? And for large-scale deployments, and that's regardless of being RDS or Citrix, automation is critical, okay? I have one customer on Citrix. It's a fairly large truck company. They make trucks. I don't want to say the name, but it's a company from Sweden. And guess what? They are Citrix, and they have PVS, and everyone was happy. Until one day there was a problem with an image, one of the images they had for an older server. They had to rebuild the image. Well, it was all a manual procedure that, again, some leprechaun wrote like years ago. And that guy was nowhere to be found. So they followed the procedure, the written procedure, and the server never worked again. There was some magical thing that was done that was, of course, not on the documentation. No one could figure out what was the problem. So their main application on that server was not able to run, period. So that's why even if you have PVS or whatever automation tool, you have to automate every single thing, including if you have PVS, your image build has to be automated. If it's manual, I can guarantee you it's going to fail at one point. You give the same document to 10 different people, they may end up with 5 different servers. Okay? So just keep that in mind. Automation is a must, regardless of the size of the environment, and that's why I have been working on this script. Even for a small environment, it's worth doing it. Because I know I can reproduce no matter what, It will always be the same. So yes, it gets my seal of approval. It's a good release, okay? Okay, so any questions? There are no more sessions, so what's the problem? No more sessions, feel free to ask anything. Let me switch to the other screen, see if the script, if the bullshit worked or not. The moment of truth. Fucker. Okay, well, sorry about that, people, but my script refused to work today. I'll record a video of this shit running to prove it works. It worked this morning, okay? I'm not a liar. Any questions?